my friends are simps.
Recently I picked up a PO-24, that is the Pocket Operator Office, and as the name suggests, the sounds that are included in this particular Pocket Operator are all inspired by things you might find around an office. I personally can't comment on that because I haven't worked in an office in quite a long time, but the idea is there's things like photocopier sounds and, I don't know, microwave pings maybe? I'm totally making that up, but you get the gist. It's not a bass synthesizer, it's not a kind of standard lead synthesizer, it's not one of the arcade inspired sounds, it's made up of sounds you find in an office. Because of this, it's regarded as one of the stranger pocket operators that are in the range, and if you look on YouTube, there's a whole bunch of people that they don't seem to quite realise what it is, or they don't seem to kind of know what to make of it, and so you get people kind of being scratching their heads and being like, alright, this is weird, or you know, they show off kind of some jams they've made with it to demonstrate the sounds, but to be honest, nothing I've seen sounded all that musical to me. It just sounded like a cacophony of noise. However, that's the kind of thing that I like, and I've historically made music with Game Boys and all that sort of thing, so anything that's a wee bit bizarre I'm interested in, especially when it's as cheap as the Pocket Operators are. I managed to get one second hand, including the case, for like 40 quid, so I just picked one up, and I have to say I've been pleasantly surprised. As soon as it came, I gave it a wee bash and I lay on the couch and made a bunch of patterns before eventually falling asleep with it on my face, which I don't know about you, but that's kind of the thing I like about the Pocket Operators, is that I can get away with that and still feel like I'm being productive. But anyway, those patterns that I made, the very first patterns I came up with, I actually really liked them, and I uploaded the jam I did with those patterns fairly recently, and maybe if I remember there'll be a link here, but maybe not because I always seem to forget to do that. Either way, I liked the track that I got from my first go so much that I thought I would take it kind of to the next level, as if you can even describe what I'm doing as having levels. But I wanted to kind of record it a bit more, with a bit more production, and see what I could do if I kind of chopped things up and added different synth bits in and all the rest of it. So that's what I'm going to do just now. I particularly like that it's got that really glitchy, harsh industrial sound to it, and at first I thought, oh, maybe I could just recreate this, you know, I'll do the thing that everyone says but never does, which is, you know, you use the Pocket Operator to get ideas and then recreate them, but I don't think anybody actually does that. But anyway, I thought I would do that, and I would recreate the melodies and stuff I come up with, but actually part of the charm and part of the thing that gave the sound its quality was the Pocket Operator voices and kind of the performative element of it, so the crushing, the squelching and all the other things you can add on with the effects as you perform with it. So my plan is to record into my DAW, and the way I'm going to do that is to tempo sync it to my Logic, and then that will let me chop up or record the patterns and basically chop them up and rearrange them, so I don't have to sit and like play through like a jam and then be stuck with whatever I do as a performance in the moment. I'll be able to rearrange it and get a better kind of composition with the different elements at my fingertips. The second thing I have to consider is, unlike other instruments, it's not all that easy to mute the individual voices with the Pocket Operators, at least not that I'm aware of, so I can't go through and like just record the bass sound and then just record the lead sound. I'm going to have to, for the large part, record the patterns as is with all the voices, and that makes it a wee bit more tricky to process, so I can't kind of add a reverb on just the lead and not the kick drum, for example, but I think it should be okay. The other thing is about that actually is just that part of the sound from the PO-24 really comes from when you do crush everything down and apply the effects, and I think that if you did that with just one or two of the voices, it wouldn't quite have the same effect as applying them to all the voices. So in some ways it'll be good, it'll retain the character. I am though at the end going to go back and probably record the lead lines separate as a new pattern, just so I've got them that I can layer on top. But for the most part, they're all going to just be as they are, so all in one track basically. To explain how I'm going to set this up and how everything's going to work together, I'm going to send the clock out of my DAW, it's going to control the tempo, and it's going to send the clock out via the ERM multi-clock. I use one of these because it straightens out the crappy clock you get that comes out of Logic, which is unbelievably unstable. It's going to send the clock via MIDI to my Endorphin shuttle control, which is a kind of MIDI CV or MIDI clock module. I've got it set up to spit out a whole bunch of different clocks based on the tempo from Logic. It will then be connected to my pocket operator down here, and basically, or theoretically, it should sync to my modular. Now there's a couple of things I have to consider with this, or you would have to consider if you're doing the same thing. Firstly, the output of the modular system is much higher than the pocket operators can theoretically handle. So the modular system spits out about it's 10 volts, I think, peak to peak, whereas the PO can only take a maximum of 5. Now, it's debatable whether or not voltages higher than 5 volts would actually damage this. It might, because it's a wee kind of, there's not much to this. However, either way, the main problem for me, or the main consideration, is if you send too much voltage into the PO, then it might not sync properly. So what I'm doing is pretty straightforward. I'm just sending the clock out through a VCA, and that should, in theory, act just as a volume knob and bring the output voltage down enough for it to work properly. We'll see. It may not. The second thing to consider is that the clock that the PO accepts isn't necessarily just a straight, click track. It could be that it's got a strange division, and I think when I was looking this up a while ago, the pocket operators do have some weird division of the clock that they accept in order to be at the right tempo. To be honest, I could look it up, and I could set my shuttle control to have a specific output that had that correct division, but I can't be arsed because then I would have to connect it up, and it's a bit more faffing about than I can be bothered with. So I'm just going to listen, and I'm going to play along with the metronome and see what sounds correct, and as long as it's, I think it'll be quicker just to listen. Famous last words. Anyway, so that's it. That's my setup, and that's what I'm going to do. Alright, so I've spent the past half hour-ish going through what I've recorded, and I'm going to explain quickly what I've got here. It's quite hard to show you on the screen, but basically I have 3 tracks. I have one at the top, which is the full kind of performance. I've gone through and chopped that up and color coded it, as you can see, so that each of the sections, the main sections I want to use, are there, and underneath that is a kind of the middle track, and what that contains is a bunch of different variations of the top track. So let's say I've added in like an extra filter sweep or whatever it is, and I'll keep them as kind of added flavour that I'll throw in later, but the top will be kind of my core melody. At the bottom is the lead, so I separated out the lead sounds, and if I play it you'll hear what I mean. So basically I've isolated and recorded the lead sounds separately so that I can add them in if I want later. I've also got a couple of bits that are just the drums. I have my rough song arrangement now. I have spent a while putting it together, probably about another 20 minutes I would say doing that. And now what I think I have to do is figure out what I'm going to add on. It's a bit difficult because it's quite full sonically already, and adding the lead lines on top of the full arrangement, which already had the lead lines in it, kind of sounds a bit weird, and I've got some phase issues and stuff, so I need to figure out how to get it all to sound alright. I think what I'll do though is maybe add some drums, and I'll probably hook up the MPC to do that, because with the MPC I can have a bit more control over what drums are in there, and I'll thicken out the beat a bit, and then that'll give me a better idea of where to add things in. I don't want to spend a huge amount of time on this because it could go on for a while, so I want to try and get as much done as possible in one sitting and see how I can do with that. So I'm going to MPC it up. MPC. I think I'm getting close to the end of what I want to do with this. I have chopped up the drums from the MPC, and I've added a whole bunch of effects on to the different elements. I don't think I'm going to add any other synths or anything, because it sounds quite good with the really thick bass and the drums giving the extra oomph to the rhythm, and then the kind of weird lead melody from the PO-24, so I don't want to overcrowd it too much. If I do add in, it'll be a wee tiny bit, but it's pretty cool just to have a track from the PO-24 with, you know, added drums. But in terms of added effects, I'll tell you what I've done. I've got a couple of different reverbs on there, on an outboard or a bus. I've also got one of my favourite plugins, which is, I think it's called, I can't pronounce it, but it's MSHBY, MSHBY from Freak Show Industries, and it adds an extra glitchy element to affairs, and it's one of my favourites. So what I'm going to do now is tidy up the mix, because at the moment I can't quite get the bass mix right, and then that'll probably be it, and I'll just play the track. But I'm pretty happy with it. It sounds different enough from the jam itself to have been worth doing, but also it still has that fucking raw edge of the PO-24. So I like this. I like this approach of using the pocket operators as a kind of, not just an idea sketch pad as people call them, but like to actually take the sounds from and build stuff from. So I think the PO-24 is going to be getting some more use, I think.